The first explosion wasn't from the enemy. It came from the sky itself. In the chaos, I found her, a wounded alien girl who warned me not to touch her, even as her fingers clung tighter. This is our story. So stay till the end, and if you love gripping HFY Sci-Fi tailies, hit subscribe and join the fight. Asterisk, the first explosion was not from the enemy. It came from the sky itself. A wall of fire rolled across the horizon, swallowing the metal towers of the alien city. The ground shook under his boots. Dust and light mixed in the air until nothing looked real. Ethan had no idea how far he had run, or why his lungs still worked when everyone else around him had fallen. He just knew one thing. The war had not been supposed to start today. He had been a scout, moving through a field of strange pink flowers on the edge of the canyon. This was supposed to be neutral ground, a place where humans and the native Virellans sometimes traded water or medicine. But now that same field was littered with burning debris. The sweet smell of flowers was replaced by smoke and metal. Shadow moved in front of him. At first, he thought it was another human soldier. But as the smoke cleared, he saw her. She was tall, taller than him by almost a head, with pale skin that caught the sunlight like polished stone. Her hair was silver white, cascading over her shoulders in sharp, clean strands. And her ears, long, elegant points that tilted slightly back, marked her as Virellan. She was kneeling in the flowers, one hand pressed against her ribs. Gold bands circled her arms, scratched and blackened from the blast. Blood, thin and shimmering like liquid pearl, dripped between her fingers. When she looked at him, her eyes were unlike any he'd seen. Deep violet, filled with both fury and something else he couldn't name. "Don't touch me." "Human," she warned, her voice low but steady. Ethan froze. His training screamed at him to keep distance. The Virellans were proud, dangerous, and deadly in close range. But he also saw the way her other hand clutched the ground, not to push herself away, but to keep herself upright. "You're hurt," he said. Her gaze sharpened. "So are 1,000 others. Go save them." Another explosion boomed, closer this time. The sky rained fragments of glowing metal. One shard slammed into the ground just behind her, throwing up dirt and petals. She flinched. Ethan took a step forward, then another, her hand lifted weakly as if to push him away. But when his fingers brushed her arm, something strange happened. She didn't pull back. In fact, her fingers curled tighter, as if her body betrayed her words. "You don't understand," she whispered, almost to herself. "If you help me, they'll come for you." Ethan glanced around. The canyon walls loomed high on both sides, and the sound of marching was starting to echo through them. Not human boots, the rhythm was different. He didn't know if it was her people or someone worse. "Too late for that," he said. He slid his arm under hers and lifted. She was lighter than he expected, but her balance was fragile. She leaned against him for a heartbeat, then tried to straighten. "I don't need," she began. But then a sharp cry escaped her lips as pain shot through her side. Ethan tightened his hold. "Save your breath." They moved through the flowers, his eyes scanning for cover. Every second, the marching grew louder. He spotted a broken section of canyon wall where the rocks had collapsed, forming a shallow shelter. It wasn't much, but it would hide them from aerial drones. Inside, the air was cooler. The alien woman sank against the stone, still clutching her side. Ethan tore a strip from his sleeve and pressed it against her wound. She hissed in pain but didn't push him away. "You're either very brave," she murmured, "or very stupid." "Maybe both." Her lips twitched, almost into a smile, but her eyes stayed guarded. For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the sound of marching passed by, then faded into the distance. The danger wasn't gone, but for now, they were invisible. Ethan studied her face. She wasn't like the other Virellans he'd seen in battle. There was a regal sharpness to her features, but also a weariness, as if she had been fighting for far longer than this war had lasted. "Why were you in the field?" he asked quietly. Her eyes met his, unblinking. "I was looking for something. Something my people lost." "What?" Her fingers tightened around his wrist, the same wrist that had tried to bandage her. "Not what," she said softly. "Who?" Ethan didn't get a chance to ask more. A sudden vibration ran through the rock under them, followed by a high, unnatural hum. She stiffened instantly. "They found us," she said. He grabbed his rifle and shifted closer to her. "Then we move, together." She hesitated, just long enough for him to notice, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. And though her first words to him had been a warning not to touch her, when they stepped out into the light again, her fingers clung to his arm even tighter than before. The air outside the shelter was heavy with heat and dust. Ethan moved quickly, guiding the alien woman through the narrow gap between the canyon walls. The hum he had heard moments ago was growing sharper, like metal cutting through the wind. "They'll track my blood," she said quietly. He glanced at the shimmering drops left in the dirt behind them. They glowed faintly under the sunlight, like spilled light instead of liquid. It was beautiful and dangerous. Without a word, Ethan knelt, scooped up handfuls of dry sand, and scattered it over the trail. The grains stuck to the pearly fluid, dulling its glow. She watched him. Her violet eyes narrowed, but this time there was something else in them, something like curiosity. "Why help me?" "Your people call mine the enemy." Ethan didn't. "Look up. I don't take orders from hatred." They moved deeper into the canyon. The walls rose so high they blocked most of the sunlight, casting long shadows. In the dimness, strange markings appeared on the stone, spirals, jagged lines, and symbols etched deep. Some were filled with silver dust that glinted faintly in the dark. "What are these?" Ethan asked. Her gaze lingered on the carvings. "Warnings. This place is called the Canyon of Voices." "Why?" Before she could answer, a whisper slid through the air. It wasn't human speech, but it wasn't quite Varellan either. It was low, layered, and seemed to come from every direction at once. Ethan stopped. His instincts screamed danger. The woman's hand tightened on his arm again, tighter than before. "Keep walking," she said. "Don't listen." But the voices grew louder the further they went. Snatches of sound curled into his mind, fragments of memories that weren't his. His father's laugh, a friend's scream, his own voice, calling out for someone he had lost years ago. Ethan shook his head sharply. "What is this?" "The canyon," she replied, her voice tense. "It doesn't speak. It remembers, and it will use your own memories against you." He gritted his teeth, forcing himself forward. The air felt heavier now, almost like invisible hands were pressing against his chest. Suddenly, she stumbled. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her eyes were wide, fixed on something he couldn't see. Her lips trembled. "What is it?" he asked. "They're showing me," she whispered. "My sister. She's alive." Ethan scanned the canyon, seeing only shadows and stone. "It's a trick." Her gaze snapped to his. "No, it's real. She was taken during the first attack. I thought she was gone." Before Ethan could reply, a deep vibration rolled through the canyon floor. A shadow slid over them, massive, shifting, almost like a living creature moving along the top edge of the cliffs. The voices stopped. The woman's grip on him became almost desperate. "They're here." He raised his rifle, his heartbeat loud in his ears. "Who?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she pointed upward. From the canyon rim, a tall figure stepped into view. Its armor was dark, segmented like an insect's shell, with long bladed limbs that caught the dim light. Its head turned slowly, scanning the shadows below. Ethan pulled her back into the cover of the wall. The figure moved with an eerie, deliberate grace, then dropped from the rim, Landing silently on the canyon floor. It began to walk toward them. The alien woman's breathing quickened, but her fingers never loosened from Ethan's arm. "If they find us," she whispered, "you won't have a chance to surrender." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure they don't." The footsteps grew louder, each one echoing like a countdown. Ethan didn't know if they would survive the next minute, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever this woman was hiding, it was worth killing for. The armored figure closed the distance with slow, deliberate steps. It didn't hurry. Predators never do when they know their prey has nowhere to run. Ethan pressed the woman back against the stone wall, his own body angled to shield her. The canyon was too narrow here. They couldn't slip around without being seen. The only option was to stay still and pray the shadows held. But then the creature stopped and tilted its head. It had found their scent. The woman's hand tightened on Ethan's wrist, her nails digging into his skin. He could feel the tremor in her fingers, but her eyes were calm, cold, and calculating. "They marked me," she whispered. Ethan glanced at her. "Marked?" She shifted the torn fabric of her gown to reveal a faint, glowing sigil burned into her skin just above her ribs. It pulsed softly, in rhythm with her heartbeat. "It's a hunter's mark. They can track me anywhere. Then we need to destroy it," she interrupted, her voice sharp, "before it calls more of them." The figure moved again, its bladed limbs scraping softly against the canyon wall. Ethan's brain raced. If they moved now, they'd be seen. If they stayed, they'd be cornered. How? He asked. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You won't like it." Before he could press further, she leaned in close, so close. He could feel the warmth of her breath against his ear. "You'll have to burn it out." Ethan's stomach twisted. "That will kill you." Her eyes met his with a strange mix of defiance and trust. "Only if you fail." The hunter was almost on them now, its shadow stretching long across the canyon floor. Ethan could hear the faint whine of its breathing apparatus, steady and inhuman. He grabbed the knife from his belt and pressed the flat of the blade against the warm rock beside him. The heat from the sun-baked stone wasn't enough. He needed fire. That's when he remembered the flare. He pulled it from his pack, twisted the cap, and a burst of harsh red light flooded the narrow canyon. The hunter froze at the sudden brightness, its head snapping toward the glow. Ethan didn't have time to think. He shoved the flare between his teeth to free both hands, yanked her closer, and pressed the hot metal of the knife against the glowing mark. She didn't scream. Her jaw clenched, her fingers digging so hard into his arm that he thought she might break bone. The smell of scorched flesh mixed with the sharp metallic tang of the flare's smoke. The sigil flared brightly, then shattered like glass, leaving only a jagged burn behind. The hunter let out a metallic hiss, its movements suddenly erratic. The red light from the flare reflected off its armor, making it look like a creature born from fire. "You broke the link," she breathed. "Good," Ethan said. "Now we run." They sprinted down the canyon, the flare still spitting sparks in his hand. Behind them, the hunter's bladed limbs scraped violently against the walls, throwing shards of rock into the air. At the far end of the canyon, the ground opened into a wide basin filled with towering stone pillars. The light was different here, warmer, softer, almost golden. The woman stopped abruptly. "What are you doing?" Ethan demanded. Her gaze swept the basin. "This is sacred ground. They won't follow us here." He looked over his shoulder. The hunter was at the canyon's mouth, its body shuddering as if some invisible barrier pressed against it. It paced along the edge, then turned and vanished into the shadows. Ethan exhaled slowly, his pulse still hammering. "Looks like you were right." But when he turned back to her, her expression was unreadable. She touched the fresh burn at her side, then looked at him with a strange intensity. "You saved my life twice now," she said softly. "That means something to my people." Ethan raised an eyebrow. What does it mean? Her answer was almost a whisper. It means you belong to me, until the debt is paid. Ethan didn't like the way she said it. You belong to me could mean 100 different things, none of them safe. They moved deeper into the basin, the air shifting from dry heat to a cooler breeze. Golden light filtered between the towering stone pillars, and the sound of trickling water echoed somewhere ahead. What does that mean? He asked again, this time more firmly. The woman kept walking, her steps graceful even with the fresh burn at her side. In my culture, saving a life is a binding act. If you save someone twice, their life becomes yours until the balance is restored. That's poetic, Ethan muttered, but also sounds a lot like a trap. She glanced at him over her shoulder, a small smirk touching her lips. Only if you break the rules. And the rules are? She stopped, turning fully to face him. The light caught in her violet eyes, making them seem almost alive. You protect me. You follow me. You do not betray me. And she hesitated, then stepped closer. You never leave until I release you. Ethan's gut tightened. Sounds like slavery. Her smirk faded. No, it's a bond, and bonds cut both ways. While you are mine, I am yours. My people will not harm you, but our enemies, they will hunt you harder. He thought of the hunter, of its bladed limbs scraping against the stone. So I'm basically wearing a target now. You were already wearing one, she said simply. They reached the source of the water, a crystal pool at the center of the basin, its surface reflecting the golden sky above. The woman knelt at the edge, dipping her fingers into the cool water. The ripples glowed faintly under her touch. Ethan crouched nearby, scanning the stone pillars for movement. Why did you come here? You said this is sacred ground. She looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing whether to speak. Because this is where my sister's trail ends, Ethan blinked. The one you saw in the canyon? She nodded. The canyon of voices doesn't lie. If it showed me her face, she's alive. And if she's alive, someone is keeping her here. Before Ethan could respond, a low hum began to vibrate through the air, softer than the hunter's, but deeper, older. The surface of the pool trembled. The woman's eyes widened. They know I've entered. Who? Ethan asked, his hand tightening on his rifle. She rose slowly from the water's edge, her movements deliberate. The keepers of the basin, my people's oldest guardians. They won't see you as my bond. They'll see you as a trespasser. Ethan took a step back, scanning the shadows between the pillars. Shapes began to emerge, tall robed figures whose faces were hidden behind smooth golden masks. Their hands held long spears that pulsed with a faint inner light. They surrounded the pool in complete silence. The woman stepped forward, raising her hands in a slow, formal gesture. He is under my claim, she said in their language. A smooth, musical tone that carried strange weight. The masked figures didn't move. One stepped closer, lowering its spear until the tip was inches from Ethan's chest. Ethan gripped his weapon, but the woman's hand touched his arm, a silent command not to fight. The keeper spoke at last, its voice deep and echoing. If he is bound to you, then he will face the trial with you. Ethan shot her a look. Trial? She didn't answer. Instead, she tightened her fingers on his arm, the same way she had in the canyon, and whispered just for him. Don't fight them. Not yet. The spear's glow brightened, and in the next instant, the ground beneath their feet shifted, swallowing them into darkness. The fall ended not with a crash, but with a strange, weightless landing. Ethan's boots touched down on smooth stone, but it felt as if the ground itself was breathing beneath him. Dim golden light filled the cavern, coming from cracks in the walls like veins of molten metal. The air smelled faintly of rain, even though they were deep underground. The woman stood beside him, her hand still gripping his arm as if afraid he might vanish. We're in the hollow chamber, she said softly. Once the keepers open it, No one leaves until the trial is done. Ethan glanced around. The chamber was vast but empty, no weapons, no clear threats. What's the trial? Her violet eyes flicked toward the shadows. Survival. Before he could ask more, a voice boomed through the chamber, deep and layered, as if many voices spoke at once. One bond. Two hearts, one truth. The ground shifted under their feet, splitting apart to reveal four paths leading into blackness. The golden cracks pulsed brighter, like the chamber itself was watching them. Choose. The voice commanded. Ethan looked at her. You know where these go? She shook her head. Every trial is different. The paths are shaped for those who walk them. That didn't make him feel better. They chose the leftmost path, the one with the faintest glow. As they stepped inside, the air turned colder, the walls narrowing until they brushed Ethan's shoulders. The sound of their footsteps echoed strangely, as if something was walking behind them, perfectly in time with their pace. The woman glanced over her shoulder, her jaw tightening. Don't look back. Why? Because the trial will make you see what you fear most. And if you believe it, it becomes real. Ethan's pulse quickened. And if I ignore it? Then it can't touch you, they pressed on. The light dimmed until only the faint gold shimmer from her skin lit the way. Then Ethan heard it, a voice. Not the keeper's, not hers. His own. It was calling a name he hadn't spoken in years. His brother's name. The brother he'd lost in the first wave of the war. He froze. Ethan, the voice called again, closer now. It's me. I'm alive. I've been looking for you. The woman's grip tightened painfully. Don't turn around. He shut his eyes and kept walking, forcing his boots forward. But every step made the voice louder, the sound of running feet behind them closing in. His chest ached with the urge to turn, to see. A hand brushed his shoulder from behind, cold, familiar. Ethan spun before he could stop himself. The corridor behind him was empty, but when he turned back, the woman was gone. Lisa! He shouted, her name escaping him for the first time without thinking. The walls closed in, the glow vanishing. The air grew heavy, crushing. A figure appeared ahead, cloaked in shadow, holding a chain that glimmered with golden light. Lisa was on her knees, bound, her eyes wide. Ethan, don't come closer. She shouted. The shadow tightened the chain, and her voice broke into a choked gasp. Ethan's instincts roared. He charged forward, but with each step, the floor beneath him began to crack. The golden light bled into blackness, threatening to swallow them both. The shadow leaned close to Lisa's ear. Break the bond, or he dies. Her eyes locked. On Ethan's, for the first time, he saw fear, not for herself, but for him. And yet, her fingers curled into fists, and she shook her head. No, she whispered, he is mine. The chamber shuddered violently, the walls splitting apart. And both of them were pulled into blinding white light. The white light faded into a sky Ethan didn't recognize. It was not the basin, not the canyon, not anywhere he had seen before. They stood on a wide, flat plain under a horizon that shimmered like molten gold. No sun, no shadows, just endless, glowing space. Lisa's chains were gone. She stood beside him, her breathing steady now, her eyes scanning the emptiness. This is the last part of the trial, she said quietly. It shows us the truth we fear most. Ethan glanced around. What truth? Her gaze shifted to him, and for the first time since they met, there was no barrier in her eyes. That my people's bond is not just a promise, it's a seal. And when I claimed you, I tied your fate to mine. Before Ethan could speak, the ground rippled like water. Shapes began to rise from the plain, hundreds of dark, insect-like figures with bladed limbs, the same as the hunter that had tracked them before. They formed a wide circle, their movements in perfect unison. Lysa stepped forward. These are the Kether, she said, our oldest enemy. The ones who took my sister. Ethan raised his rifle. Then we fight. She shook her head. No, if we fight here, we both die. This place doesn't test our strength. It tests our choice. The circle tightened, the Kether moving closer, their black shells reflecting the golden glow. One stepped forward, its voice like grinding metal. Release him, Virelin, and we will let you live. Ethan felt her fingers brush his hand, not gripping this time, but lingering. She didn't look at him when she spoke. If I release you, the bond ends. You go free. I stay, and they take me in his place. Ethan understood now. This wasn't just a trial for her. It was a trap for him. The bond gave him the choice, not her. Let me guess, he said grimly. If I keep the bond, they come for both of us. Her eyes met his, calm but heavy. Yes, and they will not stop until one of us is gone. The Kether stepped closer. Choose. The glow of the plane seemed to pulse with the word. Ethan thought of every warning she had given him. Every time she had told him not to touch her. Every time her fingers had tightened anyway. He thought of the mark he had burned from her skin, the way she had stood between him and the hunter, the way she had refused to break the bond even when it would have saved her. And then he smiled, small, dangerous. Here's my choice, he said. He stepped in front of her, rifle raised, and planted his boots in the golden dust. You want her, you go through me. A murmur rippled through the Kether. Lysa's eyes widened, her voice low. Ethan, if you do this, it's not your debt anymore, he said. It's ours. The Kether lunged. What happened next was not a battle, it was an eruption. The golden light of the plane surged upward, wrapping around both of them. Ethan felt heat in his chest, like fire and lightning combined, and saw the same glow blaze from Lysa's skin. The Kether shrieked, their forms warping and tearing apart into streams of shadow that the light devoured. When the last one vanished, the plane stilled. The voice of the keepers echoed once more. Bond proven, debt sealed, 2 hearts, 1 fate. The light collapsed, and they were back in the basin, standing at the edge of the crystal pool. The masked keepers were gone. Only the water moved. Lysa looked at him for a long moment. You could have left me. Ethan shrugged. Guess I don't take orders from fear either. She stepped closer, her fingers finding his arm again. Not out of weakness this time, but something else. Then from this moment, human, you are not just mine, I am yours. The wind shifted through the golden basin, carrying the sound of distant drums. The war was still out there. The hunters were still searching. But as they turned to leave, their fingers stayed locked together, and neither intended to let go.